September 12, 1997, Los Angeles, California. Alan Pace stood in the darkness outside Dunbar Armored on Mateo Street in downtown LA. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched a set of keys he wasn't supposed to have anymore. Just the day before, Dunbar had fired him, caught tampering with company vehicles, but Alan had already gathered everything he needed: photos of every hallway, security camera timing, guard schedules, vault access codes. Tonight, he was going to rob the place. A U-Haul truck pulled into the parking lot. 5 men climbed out. His childhood friends from Compton: Eric Boyd, Eugene Hill, Freddie McCrary, Terry Brown, Thomas Johnson. They wore ski masks and carried weapons, pistols, a shotgun, radio headsets. Alan looked at them, his heart pounding. "Just like we planned," he whispered. In and out. Less than 30 minutes later, they drove away with $18.9 million in cash. The FBI had no suspects, no witnesses, almost no evidence, because the man who robbed Dunbar Armored had spent months photographing the facility as a safety inspector. He knew every camera blind spot, every guard rotation, every weakness. But here's what nobody could have predicted. One careless transaction 2 years later would bring the entire operation crashing down. How did a fired employee pull off the largest cash heist in US history? And what single mistake exposed a crew that had stayed hidden for 2 years? Early 1990s, Compton, California. Alan Pace grew up in Compton, one of the toughest neighborhoods in Los Angeles. But Alan stayed focused, stayed disciplined. He got a job with Dunbar Armored, one of the nation's largest cash handling companies. Alan started low, but he was reliable, punctual, trustworthy. By the mid-1990s, Dunbar promoted him to Regional Safety Inspector. This wasn't just any job. As safety inspector, Alan had access to everything. He inspected security cameras, timing their rotation patterns, noting blind spots. He checked fire extinguishers and hallway clearances, which gave him an excuse to photograph every corridor. He reviewed guard schedules, learning exactly when the facility was most vulnerable. He tested alarm systems, understanding their response times. His job was to find security weaknesses and fix them. But somewhere along the way, Alan stopped reporting weaknesses. He started cataloging them. Alan began taking detailed notes, photos of the vault, camera angles, guard break times. He knew Friday nights were perfect. Armored trucks returned from bank pickups with millions in cash. The vault stayed open because of the large volume of money being moved. By late 1996, Alan had a complete blueprint of how to rob Dunbar. "I know this place better than anyone. I know when the guards take breaks. I know which cameras rotate and which are fixed. I could do this." But he couldn't do it alone. Alan needed people he could trust completely, people who wouldn't panic, people who'd keep quiet. He thought about his childhood friends from Compton. Alan gathered them at his apartment. "I know how to get $18 million, he said quietly, "and I know exactly how to get away with it." They stared at him. "You're talking about Dunbar?" Eric asked. Alan nodded. "I've been planning it for months. I know every camera, every guard schedule, every weakness in their security." Eugene leaned forward. "How much do we each get?" Alan did the math in his head. $3 million each. $3 million. Life-changing money. One by one, they agreed. September 11th, 1997, the day before the heist, Alan Pace showed up for work at Dunbar. His supervisor called him into the office. "Alan, we need to talk. We found evidence you've been tampering with company vehicles." Alan's stomach dropped. "What? No, You're terminated. Effective immediately. Turn in your keys and security badge." "No. Not now. Not when we're this close." He handed over his official keys, his badge, but he had copies. Copies he'd made months ago. That night, Alan called his crew. "We're still on for tomorrow. They fired me, but I have everything we need. But being fired created a massive problem. Alan was now an obvious suspect if anything went wrong at Dunbar. So how did he plan to avoid suspicion? And what did his crew do on the night of the heist that would give them the perfect alibi? September 12, 1997, 10 p.m., Long Beach, California. Alan and his 5 friends attended a house party, not to celebrate, to establish an alibi. They made sure people saw them, talked to them, remembered them being there. At 11:30 p.m., they slipped away from the party, changed into dark clothing, grabbed their masks, gloves, and weapons. The U-Haul truck Eugene had rented the day before was waiting. They drove to the Dunbar facility on Mateo Street. The parking lot was dark, quiet. Alan used his copied keys to unlock the side door, an entrance with no camera coverage. Click, they were in. Alan led them through the corridors, moving during the precise intervals when rotating cameras faced away. He timed this hundreds of times in his head. 5 seconds while camera rotates left. Move, hug the wall. Wait, 3 seconds, move again. They reached the cafeteria. Alan knew the guards took their lunch breaks at 12:30 a.m. One by one, they'd come to the cafeteria. The crew waited in the shadows. A guard walked in, heading for the coffee machine. The crew rushed him, grabbed him, forced him to the ground. Don't move, don't make a sound. They bound his hands and feet with duct tape, covered his mouth. Over the next 15 minutes, 3 more guards entered the cafeteria for their breaks. Each time, the same routine. Rush them, restrain them, silence them. No alarms, no struggle, no shots fired. The hard part was over. Now they needed to get to the vault. But there was a problem. The vault prep room had cameras they couldn't avoid. Alan made the call. We rush them, fast, before they can hit the alarm. They burst into the vault prep room. 2 armed vault guards spun around, shocked. Down, now. Before the guards could react, the crew had weapons on them. Don't touch that alarm. Hands where we can see them. The guards complied. No heroes tonight. Alan taped them up while the others secured the room. The vault was open, just like Alan knew it would be on Friday nights. And there it was. Pallets of cash, stacks of bills, more money than any of them had ever seen. Freddie whispered, Jesus Christ. Grab the bags with the highest denominations, Alan ordered. Non-sequential bills, leave the marked ones. Alan knew which bags to take. He'd studied the sorting system for months. They worked fast, loading bags onto handcarts, rolling them to the loading dock. The U-Haul backed up to the dock, stack after stack, bag after bag. Thomas grabbed the security videotapes from the recording room. Got them, he said. No video evidence, no faces, no identification. They loaded the last bags. The U-Haul pulled out of the parking lot, slowly, carefully, no speeding, no attention. They drove through downtown LA, eventually merging onto the highway. For 10 minutes, nobody spoke. Then Eugene started laughing, nervous, disbelieving laughter. $18.9 million, he said. We just stole $18.9 million. Alan stared out the windshield, watching the city lights blur past. That was the easy part. Now we have to not get caught. They returned to the house party in Long Beach, changed back into casual clothes, rejoined the party like they'd never left. People saw them, would remember them being there all night. The perfect alibi. They'd pulled off the largest cash heist in American history. The FBI had no evidence, no witnesses. Their alibi was airtight. But $18.9 million is impossible to hide forever. So where did they put the money? And how long could they resist spending it? September 13th, 1997, 6:45 a.m., Dunbar Armored Facility. The morning shift arrived. They found the guards still bound in the cafeteria, the vault nearly empty. Within minutes, the LAPD was on scene. Then the FBI special agents walked through the facility, studying every detail. No forced entry, no triggered alarms, cameras disabled. This was professional. How much? Initial count, $18.9 million. This is the largest cash robbery in US history. The FBI, IRS, and LAPD created a joint task force. They interviewed every Dunbar employee, past and present. They reviewed security footage from surrounding businesses. They found one clue, a broken piece of taillight plastic in the parking lot from a U-Haul truck. Investigators noticed something suspicious. Alan Pace, former safety inspector, had been fired the day before the robbery. He had intimate knowledge of the facility. They brought him in for questioning.
Mr. Pace, where were you the night of September 12th?
At a house party in Long Beach, Alan said calmly. With friends. Dozens of people saw me there. All night. They interviewed everyone at that party. Every single person confirmed Alan Pace was there. So were Eric Boyd, Eugene Hill, Freddie McCrary, Terry Brown, and Thomas Johnson. All night, together. The alibis were solid. Too solid. But agents couldn't shake the feeling that these 6 childhood friends were involved. They just couldn't prove it. The crew waited 6 months before touching the money. Then, slowly, they started spending. Alan created front companies to launder cash. Eric Boyd funneled $177,000 through his father's business. They bought property, opened businesses, made investments. Eugene Hill bought real estate. Terry Brown started spending more freely. Freddie McCrary made large purchases. The FBI watched, waiting for a mistake. Despite intensive surveillance, the FBI had nothing concrete. No evidence linking any of them to the heist. The case went cold. For 2 years, Alan Pace and his crew had avoided detection. The FBI knew they were guilty, but couldn't prove it. Then one crew member made a purchase that seemed innocent, but contained a fatal clue. What did Eugene Hill do that finally exposed the entire operation? 1999, 2 years after the heist, Eugene Hill was doing well. He had money, property, a successful real estate portfolio. He felt untouchable. Eugene hired a real estate broker to help him purchase another property. They met at the broker's office to finalize the deal. Eugene pulled out a stack of cash to make a payment. The broker took the money, counted it, started to put it away. Then he paused. The cash was still wrapped in original currency straps, the branded paper bands that banks and armored car companies use. Most people don't have cash wrapped in original currency straps. That only happens when money comes directly from a bank or armored car facility. The broker had been in real estate for 20 years. He'd handled thousands of cash transactions. He knew what legitimate cash looked like. This didn't feel right. The broker examined the cash more closely. The straps had markings, codes, serial numbers, Dunbar Armored Company. His stomach dropped. The broker contacted the LAPD. I think I have stolen money. A client just paid me with cash wrapped in original currency straps from Dunbar Armored. The LAPD contacted the FBI task force that had been working the Dunbar case. Agents who'd been waiting 2 years for a break jumped into action. They analyzed the currency straps. Dunbar Armored Company, September 1997 batch. The same vault, the same heist. Agents dove into Eugene's background, bank records, property purchases, rental agreements. Then they found it. Eugene Hill had rented a 14-foot U-Haul truck on September 11, 1997, the day before the robbery. The truck was returned on September 13th, the same truck model that left a broken taillight piece at the Dunbar facility. With the currency straps and the U-Haul rental, agents finally had probable cause. They obtained warrants to search Eugene's properties. FBI agents raided Eugene Hill's home at dawn. They found more cash, thousands of dollars, still in original Dunbar currency straps. Eugene knew instantly. The money. I forgot about the straps. How could I be so stupid? He'd stolen $18.9 million, waited 2 years, laundered carefully, and he'd paid a real estate broker with cash that was still wrapped in the robbery's original packaging. In the interrogation room, Eugene sat across from FBI agents. They showed him the currency straps, the U-Haul rental agreement, the timeline. Eugene's shoulders slumped. "I'll tell you everything," he said quietly, "but I want a deal." The FBI offered him a reduced sentence in exchange for full cooperation. It was Alan Pace. He planned the whole thing. He recruited me, Eric Boyd, Freddie McCrary, Terry Brown, and Thomas Johnson. Alan had photos of the facility. He knew the guard schedules. He knew the camera blind spots. He had keys. I was the getaway driver. That broken taillight, that was from my U-Haul. Armed with Eugene's confession and testimony, the FBI obtained warrants for all 6 men. Alan Pace, arrested. Eric Boyd, arrested. Freddie McCrary, arrested. Terry Brown, arrested. Thomas Johnson, arrested. The Dunbar Heist crew was in custody. FBI agents handcuffed Alan in his apartment. "Alan Pace, you're under arrest for bank robbery and conspiracy." Alan said nothing, but his mind raced. 2 years. We made it 2 years. And Eugene paid someone with currency-strapped cash. Unbelievable. After 2 years of freedom, the entire crew was behind bars. Eugene had confessed. The FBI had their case. But would Alan Pace take responsibility? Or would he try one last desperate move to save himself? And how much of the $18.9 million would the FBI actually recover? Spring 2001. Federal Court, Los Angeles. Alan Pace and Eric Boyd chose jury trials. The other 4 cooperated with prosecutors for reduced sentences. Eugene Hill took the stand. Alan stared at his childhood friend, now testifying against him. "Alan planned everything," Eugene said, avoiding Alan's eyes. He had photos of the facility. He knew every camera angle, every guard schedule. He told us exactly what to do. The prosecution presented the evidence: currency straps, the U-Haul rental, financial records, shell companies. Alan took the stand with an audacious strategy. "I'm being set up. Eugene is lying because I had an affair with one of their wives. This is revenge." The prosecutor demolished him. "You were the safety inspector. You had the keys, the codes, the knowledge. And you're saying it's coincidence the facility you inspected was robbed the day after you were fired." Alan had no answer. The jury deliberated 3 days. "We find the defendants guilty on all counts." The judge's words were cold. "You used your position to commit the largest cash robbery in American history. You nearly succeeded, but greed and human error brought you down." The sentences fell like hammer blows. Alan Pace, 24 years, Eric Boyd, 17 years, Eugene Hill, Freddie McCrary, Terry Brown, Thomas Johnson, 8 to 10 years each. Alan's final words: "I made one mistake, trusting my friends." The judge shook his head. "No, Mr. Pace. Your mistake was thinking you could outsmart everyone." Alan Pace spent 23 years in federal prison. No appeals, no early release. On October 1st, 2020, at age 58, he walked out a free man, nearly a quarter century behind bars, for a crime that took 30 minutes. But one massive question remained unanswered. Where is the missing money? And will it ever be found? Of the $18.9 million stolen, only $5 to $10 million was ever recovered. $10 to $12 million is still missing. Alan Pace has never revealed where it went. Neither has anyone else from the crew. The FBI searched properties, followed money trails, interviewed family members for years. The millions simply vanished. Alan Pace did outsmart Dunbar's security because he designed it. For 2 years, he outsmarted the FBI with careful planning and discipline. But he couldn't control Eugene Hill paying a broker with currency-strapped cash. One stack of cash, still wrapped in original straps. One moment of carelessness. That's all it took to unravel the perfect crime. Alan Pace was released from prison in October 2020. He's 62 years old, a free man. Does he know where the missing $10 million is? Is he waiting for FBI surveillance to end so he can retrieve it? Somewhere out there, $10 million is hidden. The FBI is still looking, and Alan Pace knows exactly where it is. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into history's most audacious heists. Drop your theories about the missing millions in the comments below.